So what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt, and this is Demo Reel. And today, I am joined by James Boo. James, how you doing today, man?
I'm very tired.
So what you're saying is you're a filmmaker.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Now, if James's name sounds familiar, well, you probably know him from his documentary series, 1 Minute Meal. But you might know him because we had his film Refuge of Hope that he made with Yasmin Mystery on Demo Reel a little while back. And we finally have him on the channel, so that's going to be awesome. But today, we're going to be talking about a question that I feel like every independent filmmaker has to deal with at some point. You have your film idea, how do you get it off the ground when it's just you? When it's just you, you don't have anyone else, it's just you and what you have at your disposal. And I thought James was a great person to talk to because that's exactly what he did with his series 1 Minute Meal, which is now entering its 3rd season, right? Yep. So, if you guys are interested, we're going to get into it. First things first, give people a little description of 1 Minute Meal if they don't know about it.
Sure. So 1 Minute Meal is a documentary web series, and every episode of the series is a minute-long story about a person or a place or a community or an issue that on the surface is about food, and under the surface is about something that's much more important, usually about moments in people's lives or dreams that they have or challenges that they're facing. That all together, these stories create to me, a more realistic and kind of compassionate picture of New York that includes all of the people who are here that are never going to be on TV and will never be in cinema or any of these other kind of venues because they don't fit into the media market for those kinds of stories.
Right.
You know, some of the names and people that I cover do have good reputations in terms of media, and they are savvy, and you know, there's a mix of things going on. But for the most part, the mission of the series is to create this well-produced, very accessible, and relatable portrait of New York that is just, it's not what you're going to see if you turn on your TV. But it's something that's a little closer to people who live here and have a chance. And if you don't have a chance to meet these people, like that's really my hope, is that I know everyone has so much stuff going on and work is just always terrible in New York and you're always under pressure. So you can live in the city and feel like you have no idea what it's about. Or you can live in the city and have totally the wrong idea. I've seen this happen so many times because all you're focused on is your career and you think, oh, New York is about making it, and it's a very narrow path for yourself. The thing that's really great about the city is not that it's important or that it's like the best place to live. It's actually really hard to live here. The thing that's great about it is nevertheless we have all these different communities and you can just walk out your door and learn a lot and experience a lot and make a lot of friends just by talking to people, which is not true, I think, in other parts of the country. So there's a lot of this, these American values that people like to talk about so much, but don't always get to practice or see what it really looks like when you interact with each other.
Exactly.
And that's a big motivation for doing the series.
That's awesome. And how did you come up with this idea?
That is a good way to think about this, especially for people who are trying to get started. I think that the idea itself is like an overrated concept because if you can't make something out of it, you will never know if your idea was any good.
Right.
And so I started with something a little more practical, which was, I didn't have an idea. All I knew is that I was really tired of writing, and I had made a short documentary called Sugar Shack, which is also, you can find it on Vimeo.
I'll put a link to that in the description below.
It was a 12-minute film about a maple farm in Quebec that was made over the course of just a 2-day visit, and ended up getting a really good response and was really fun to do and rewarding to produce and direct and edit and all that stuff. So I was just looking for a project that I could use to make things happen and get better. So by taking that kind of goal, what I ended up with was a series because I didn't have to have this big project. I could incrementally, using a series, produce stories that would force me to finish things and then get them out there and see what was working and what was not working. Even if, not even just in terms of audience response, but for myself, it's like, okay, what did I like about doing this? What was hard about shooting this? What should I know?
Right.
The bigger your idea is, the bigger your project is, the less likely you're actually going to get to learn all those things, because then you just hit all these obstacles, and your whole life becomes pitching for money, or trying to get people to work for free, or spending what little money you have because you do want to pay people. Like all these things will stop you from actually ever finishing. So I said it should be a series, and it should be something that's short, because then people will be more likely to watch it, and I can actually be more likely to finish it.
Right.
And it should be something that I can shoot and edit without spending a lot more on equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had at the time was a Rebel T3i, a 50 millimeter, that 50 millimeter, like $100 lens.
Yep.
Canon, and then I had some understanding of sound recording. I didn't have any equipment, but I had enough to kind of budget and say, look, I'm going to have to spend, a few $100 to get a Zoom recorder, which seems like the best value, and then a lav mic that I can take with me to make sure that when I'm interviewing people, it really just, the production value is good enough so people are going to watch it and not just get dismayed in the first 5 seconds when it sounds like it was not professional. So that was the starting budget. That was the starting line for everything. And then the stories just came from my own experiences, right? And, write what you know, film what you know. If you're doing nonfiction, you have to think about just what is your network, what are your sources, what's something that you actually can find a good story within. And for me, it was food, and it was the human side of food. And so the first dozen or so stories was just me going back to people I'd written about previously. Right. And I mean, for those of you who don't have this kind of pre-existing, these are places that I eat at, so you don't have to have a body of work already. That's not what I'm saying. I just mean that you have to have some experiences that you can tap into that don't have these barriers, right? If I had tried to go to a famous chef because that's what I think a food series should be, you're not going to get anyone. Yeah, they're going to meet with the PR agent, and then it's going to be a huge pain in the ass because they have their own agenda, and the subjects that I cover don't have an agenda. They're just happy to share their lives with people. So as long as I'm a nice guy and I'm totally transparent, I just tell them, well, this is what I'm doing, this is where it's going to go. If they ask how many people are going to see it, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. This was in 2013. There was no video and social media was not as mature, and right now it's not even very mature, but it was not as far-reaching as it is today. Exactly. My mind is blown right now by this new season is all being produced or published on Facebook. And Facebook video wasn't even like this a year ago. So you do have options, right? So you just have to kind of spread it on the table. It's like, okay, what can I make with what I have? If I need, some money, let's just be very practical about it. Like, why am I spending this money, and is it going to be, that lav mic that I got for that, it was $150 in 2013. I still use it today. So, I've used it for 3 seasons of work, and it's, it's just a simple wired mic, so it's going to last probably for decades, unless I have some kind of accident. So, you can just make some smart choices about where to spend the money, and then just start making something. So sometimes when people ask me the same question, even some of the people that I document, they need to make social media videos, and they need to make stories of their own. Right. And all I say is, like, you'll whatever idea comes most naturally to you, just run with that, and then just do it on Instagram. Make it with your phone. Keep it short. Do it on Instagram or Facebook, because you don't have that 1 minute time limit right now. And then just see what happened, and it's probably not going to be what you wanted it to be. Right. And you may not know what it's supposed to do, but you'll see and get some feedback from people. And I had done about a dozen stories for the series before I even actually sat down and really thought about, like, what am I trying to do? Right. And then what is my idea? And it was the feedback that I got from the viewers who early on were interested enough to comment and talk to me on email, or from the editors that I talked to who were interested in putting it on their site. Right. And they spoke back to me about what they appreciated in terms of diversity and inclusion, which is okay. That's now that I look back at it, that's like a natural part of my personality, but it wasn't really my goal.
Yeah.
I was just doing what I knew. Mm-hmm. What I knew was that there are lots of people who have a very diverse range of experiences that don't get represented. So I was going to them first because they would be more willing to give me a real kind of personal story,
right?
Instead of just a PR kind of thing. So yeah, to sum it all up, it's essentially, it doesn't matter what you have, you can work with that. And once you finish making something once or twice, or even if you're limiting who sees it, you're gonna know, like you'll know, oh man, I wish I had this, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
And once you feel confident, that's like, okay, now I know what's really holding this back, then you'll be in a better position to spend $100 to get an audio recorder, or a better mic, or a rent a lens.
Right.
And you won't be figuring stuff out before you know whether it was necessary or not.
And it's interesting you say that, because I feel like a lot of people think they need to have everything figured out before they actually take one step, before they start shooting. They want to know, like, okay, this is what it's going to be, this is what we're going to have on it, blah, blah, blah. But it sounds like your experience was more just like, I have a vague idea, let me shoot something, and then just roll with it.
Yeah, and that's part of that. It comes with nonfiction and documentary journalism. But
right.
I can see if you're trying to produce a narrative story and you need 5 cast members, of course you're going to need to make a case to them.
Yeah, admittedly, like documentary and fiction is 2 different beasts.
But at the same time, you want to really force yourself to say, well, if I'm about to make this big ramp that I have to go up with, a big staircase that says, okay, first you need 5 actors, and then you need, okay, then you're gonna have to feed them, and you're gonna have to do this and this, or you really want to say, like, look, can I get away with just a scene? It doesn't even have to be the whole story. Can I just do a scene? There's a really awesome web series right now that's been out. Just second season came out this June, and they did a similar thing as I'm doing, which is they're putting out a new story every day, and the stories are very short.
Yeah.
It's called The Feels. This is my favorite web series that I've ever seen, like a fictional web series, and it's all coming from short scenes that are written by the creator of the series, and it just works, right? Like, even if they didn't have a full overarching picture, if you start putting these scenes together, you're gonna discover what your center of gravity is, and then you're gonna be able to create some order after that. But at first, you just gotta kind of build one scene at a time, and so you don't have to have everything figured out. Especially if you're doing, I think, like a comedy series, you'll see something that's common with people who got their stuff off the ground. It's like, they'll shoot it in their apartment. A lot of apartment-based things, and it's not going to be everything you want. But once you know and see from audience reactions and from your own kind of criticism, this is what's missing, and I wish the story could be better. Now you have the chance to do it, and now you have the proof that, like, yes, I'm watching this thing in front of me. We did the best we could. I know what's missing here is a key crew member, to really focus on the set design, or I really need to work harder on the script or the dialogue. There's all kinds of things that are easier to spot once you've kind of made the mistake.
Yeah,
and it's okay to make those mistakes.
Of course,
you got to do something, and the best you can is better than just getting stuck.
Exactly, and so as you were going through this process, just like shooting, kind of having the ideas evolve, can you give us some idea of, like, the things you mentioned before, like you find out, oh, I need this, like for example, members of the crew, if you have any, like, who were some people, like extra people you found out that you needed, like, I need this person, I need this person?
In terms of production, I always set a boundary that said I need to be able to do it all myself if necessary.
Yep.
So because I prefer to pay people, and for kind of ethical reasons.
Because you seem like a decent person.
But also practical reasons, right? I've done projects before, not just in film, but in tech and any other business, where it doesn't matter how enthusiastic someone is, if they're not. If there's not a concrete investment, or at least a real token of appreciation and an investment from your side, it doesn't matter how intellectually engaged they are. It's just always going to be a slightly lower priority.
Exactly.
So I set a border that said, okay, I'm going to be sure that I can do entire stories by myself. Then, as I kind of prove that I could do that, then I could actually say, great, I know what I can do. Now I can think of stories that require a second camera that are going to be tougher to do. And so one of those stories was about a protest that took place, and this is one of these times where I'm actually shooting some verite stuff and I don't have as much control. And I want to make sure I'm capturing key moments where people are saying things just in real time. And so this is a story that's on the series in season 2 about a street vendor protest, and we have one of my best friends I asked to just come in and do me this favor, shooting with me. And because it was so specific, I knew exactly what he would be there for. It was very easy and efficient for me to say, okay, man, I really need a second camera because we need 2 angles on this protest and these speakers, and you're going to be helping me deliver this message of kind of empowerment or what it is that these street vendors need and how they're being held back by the policies that we have. And it was much easier for him to get invested that way because it was so clear in terms of like what a difference this was going to make.
Exactly.
Another example that's not about production was marketing. So marketing is a real job. It's a terrible, really difficult job that I can't
as someone who used to work in marketing. I know.
It's you get held responsible for things that you don't have control over, and not a lot of people appreciate that. Like, your job is to try. And so after my first season, I just understood that there's all this extra outreach we could be doing to reach viewers, and I didn't know exactly what it would take, and it wasn't my area of expertise. So, but I knew it was holding me back. I knew that unless I could get a handle on how to reach people, which is really what marketing is. It's not making commercials. It's like, especially in digital media, how do you know that where you put your story, how it's presented, how it's worded, how it can be all these questions, 1,000,001 questions that have to be prioritized, and then someone has to do something about them. That was really hard, and so that was an easy place for me to say, well, I don't have the time if I'm going to also keep producing and doing stories by myself. So I brought in Mackenzie, who was a fan, but she also is a great photographer, and she also had experience working in social media for restaurants and for a magazine. And so that was a nice complementary skill set that I knew, like, great, now I have someone who knows what she's doing and can kind of give advice, but also kind of run things week to week, day to day when we have a new episode, let me know that we're going to generate a list of people to reach out to who I'm sure would love the story and would share it. But all these things take minutes, and they take hours, and they take days. And so that's another thing about just finishing one scene or finishing one story, is that you can step back and say, how long did everything take? Do I actually have the time to do that? And then when you realize, like, I have 20 hours this week max, and this stuff's going to take 30 hours, then you can really say, what's the 10 hours that I can assign to someone else? Then I can feel great about asking for help. Because it's not just like, hey, show up at my place and then we'll just like figure stuff out. It's me saying, like, hey, I have this really specific need. You are the best person. Now, please come out and make this possible. Because I'm doing what I'm doing best. You're going to do what you do best. And then 1 + 1 is going to be 3. It's not just going to be like -2 because we all just wasted a day just trying to be cool dudes or cool ladies and just make something fun.
Now, this is a question that sends a shiver down everyone's spine, but did you find you needed extra funding from outside your own pocket? And if so, how did you come about it?
For the first 2 seasons, I did not get any funding. I just said it, I funded myself in the sense that I already had the production equipment. So I probably spent a few $100 for the audio equipment.
Got it. But that was all stuff you already had just from other...
It was stuff I already had, and to be totally fair, like, if you want to buy a Rebel, I still think it's a great way to get started. It's a very lightweight camera, and I don't know what the price is now, but when I bought it was like $400. And I had bought that previously to take stills. So I think it's worth kind of spending that initial $500, however you can come up with it, to just get a shooting kit that you can work with and deliver something that people are going to watch. And that will help you learn, right? So you learn how to work with visuals and photography and just all that stuff, right? So that was it. 25 stories on that kit. Just that. And at some point I bought a video mic, but it was a backup, right? And sometimes I use the onboard mics everyone knows or who have used them are terrible, but for B-roll with a little background audio, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
The thing that really mattered to me was the audio for the interviews. It should be very clear and people, because you respond to people's voices.
Yeah.
And that's something you learn. Once you make something, you're like, jeez. Like, it could be because you forgot to turn on the recorder or because you didn't have one. Then you realize how that you yourself are not connecting to the person. So, okay, first season, 25 stories. I just did on that very simple kit.
Yep.
Second season, I brought on this person to help with marketing and some other production, and I paid her a few $100s a month, and that was self-funded. So I was just taking it from my day job.
Yep.
And I felt good about that because I knew it was valuable. It wasn't just like throwing money at something hoping it would be better. It was a need that I had realized was missing, and that I couldn't fill myself. So it's like, you know what? That's the thing. Like you're kind of, you are contributing the budget by your time.
Yeah.
But my time is not available here, so now I have a budget gap.
Right,
and then you start to spend money to fill that gap. The third season here is much more ambitious, and so in terms of production, it's only possible for me to go this big. And to summarize, I'm doing 30 stories released over 30 days.
Got it.
Also launching an exhibit which New Yorkers can see at the Museum of Food and Drink. So there's a visual exhibit there, and we had an opening night exhibition party with a special screening.
Right.
And so these kind of community events, I had identified them as being important to carrying the message across and generating some press in a way that isn't just like, do you like content? Or like, please share this person's content, right? Doing these local screening events shows who's really behind this.
Yeah.
And gives people a chance to connect, whether it's just with other filmmakers or in this case it's with the subjects of my story and people who are enthusiastic about their work and their food and their stories.
Yeah.
And that ended up generating a lot of press, so I'm glad that it paid off. But all this requires effort, time, and money, right? So this season is possible because I quit my job. And I made that decision because I kind of got a lot of momentum behind the idea of making a big season like this.
Right.
And making it something more interactive and more grounded in kind of like getting the community involved. And then on the basis of that momentum, I got a fellowship at the Mid-New York Media Center at IFP, which is in Dumbo. And it's not a paid fellowship, but they give me a workspace.
Right.
So at that point I said, well, okay, I have been saving money for a year and a half, just waiting for an opportunity. And so if you're not, and this is all to be totally transparent, like I'm taking advantage of whatever privileges I have. And that's one of the real benefits of recognizing your privileges is that you can use them for something better. And so rather than, spending kind of the extra income I was making at my day job in tech on restaurants or like things that would make me feel better about not exactly being where I wanted to be in my professional career, I just kept saving it. And kept a spreadsheet where I would say, well, okay, if I quit today, how many months would I have? And once you have that number, then you can compare it to like, okay, well, if I had this much money, what could I do? And so I saved up enough until I had 9 months of runway. And then in parallel, I just kept building this idea of where, I didn't want to just do a third season. I wanted to possibly finish the series, right? So this would be something I could be, because this can't go on forever with no budget. So it could either end the series, and I need to be very happy with how it ended, or it needs to be big enough to create more opportunities.
Right.
And so when I got the letter back that said I got this fellowship, and they liked my project, right, 1 Minute Meal, they believed that the kind of the growth pitch that I gave them was a good one. Then I said, great, now this is what I've been waiting for, and I'm confident enough that I can just leave this job. I've been there for like 8 years. Right. So this is not.
It wasn't just like a screw you or anything like that.
Yeah. So I had been planning this, and that's another thing I think anyone trying to get something started, like definitely when you're getting something started,
you got to be methodical. You got to plan it.
Well, I on the flip side, that's why it's important to kind of move quickly and experiment and just get stuff done, because like you can do that if you have a day job.
Right.
If you're trying to do a bigger project and you have a day job, you can't. Like, something's going to have to get sacrificed.
Yeah.
That's why kind of doing these one scene at a time. I did that for 3 years, and I was working 60 hours a week at another job. But it would only take 1 week, 1.5 days a week, eventually, to make one story or one scene a week. So it made it possible, right? And now I eventually got to the point where I really had an opportunity, and I took it. And I'm spending that money that I saved, which is kind of painful, but I feel really good about it because it is working.
Yeah.
Reaching more people than ever before, and that. In documentary filmmaking, you can get money because you already have it, which is what a lot of people do. And so I kind of bought my way into that position by just sacrificing for a year and saving that money, so I can be at least for half a year to 9 months, I can be that person who just wakes up and doesn't have to worry about life because you just have money from your parents or whatever. And
but you got that because you saved. You were.
Yeah, I do want to be mindful. It's if you have in New York City, especially, saving is an impossibility. If you have debt and all this stuff, all these things, I don't want to be unfair about people's constraints, but you do need money, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way to do it. There are also community-driven and Kickstarter campaigns, things like that, which are very common. But I think what I wanted to say was, regards to funding, you either have money and you just take advantage and exploit that, or you don't have money and you just generate momentum, right? Because once you get some key interest, it's very hard to be the first person. And that's the real advantage of bootstrapping. Is if you're the first person, you can fund just the critical things.
Yeah.
And for me, that's just time. The time I don't have to be working in other places, that I can just focus on making this pitch really strong, building out the vision for it, now that I know it's working, and then going to people who have micro grants, right? So I got this fellowship. That was step one. It's now I have a home. I can work on this for a year at this great nonprofit space and have a desk and start expanding my network and meeting other filmmakers and doing this. This was such a great opportunity.
Yep.
And once I was there, they said, hey, we're offering a grant up to $10,000 for your project, so you should pitch. And because I had kind of gotten to this point and I had the momentum, I was like, great, I know what to do. I know what the pitch is going to be, and I know the budget. I know all these things. So incrementally, one step at a time, I was able to take advantage of it. It wasn't like I woke up and said, great, there's some money out there. I have to start from zero. Figure out how to do it. So I ended up getting a $5,000 grant, and that was amazing. It let me hire a composer and an assistant editor. And similarly, with the momentum thing, I had kind of started talking to these folks and reaching out and trying to find out who could work on it before I had the money. So I just settled, hey man, I might not get this money, but if it is, this is what I'm applying for. I'm just telling them exactly what's going on, and then I end up getting half of what I asked for. So hey, look, I got half what I asked for, but I would still love for you to be here. This is what I can pay.
Right.
And it was still a good fit, so they both said yeah.
Cool.
So I'm trying to really just answer your original question, just the funding part of it.
I mean, you answered it in different ways. It sounded like people liked your idea, so maybe at times they didn't necessarily donate money, but they said, hey, we'll give you resources, like a workspace, things like that.
Right.
And maybe it wasn't just one thing, it was a bunch of different things.
I guess what I would say is you want to protect your independence. You want, and this informs what you can do, unfortunately, right? I can see a lot of people wanting to make a series that simply you can't do because you need a certain amount of budget, and you want to respect that.
Yeah.
But that said, okay, if you're going to get somewhere, and this may be your first idea, as it was with mine, figure out what you can do with no extra money. And then just do it and see what's missing, and then say, okay, then put a price tag on how to finish out the picture.
Right.
Then what that lets you do is when you're pitching, your pitches are going to be much better. Nobody wants to hear someone asking for money who just says I'm a cool person with a great idea. They want to just see, if I give you this much money, what's it going to do?
Right.
And why are you asking me? And why am I trusting you? These are all the questions that you have to answer. So having them fit into a bigger picture is great. Having them fit into a moving train, it's look, where this thing's happening, it can be this much better or this much better.
Right.
And it can reach this many people or it can reach this many people.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the right person to give me this money because, you know, you are in this nonprofit space that is all about increasing diversity. That's my mission too. So I'm just here to tell you we're on the same path.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the right person because I've proven to you I can do this.
Yep.
And I'm giving you a really concrete, clear idea of your money's going to help hire this person, create this extra job,
right? And
it's going to make the stories this much better. And then I'll be able to focus on this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing that I said concretely was, I've written music, I've done some of the soundtracks for this series, but that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if I hire this composer, that's like, he can do something in 4 hours that it would take me 2 days. So now, if you give me this money, I literally said, like, you're going to give me 3 extra weeks of time back.
Right.
I can focus on marketing, which is going to be good for both of us. I can focus on distribution, which is going to be good for both of us. I can focus on getting the right stories, right? That's because I'm the producer. No one's going to replace me on this. Mm-hmm. So I can get the stories that really fulfill your mission.
Right.
And my mission, which is a more inclusive picture, more diverse stories. And I don't know exactly what their conversation was, but I like to think that, over the years of my doing these pitches and having some failures and some successes, that, just making it easy for them to say, like, yeah, this makes sense. Everything about this makes sense. I see no reasons to say no, mm-hmm. because not only is this what we wanted in the first place, this person is the right person to do it. Mm-hmm. Not only is this person right, there are 40 other people,
right?
And this is in like the top 10.
Yeah.
And so I would say, in terms of funding, if anyone hasn't taken a class on grant applications, and even if it's not related to what you want to do, that process of like understanding what the other people with money are thinking and what their job is and what they care about, that's invaluable. I wish I'd taken some of these classes so much earlier instead of learning the hard way.
Yeah.
But one way or another, you have to learn.
Yeah, for sure. And so basically, just to summarize the thing about funding, what I'm getting from you is that it's basically, if you're going to have to ask for money, know what you're asking for, where you want it to go, and know why that you need this, and that comes back to the thing I think we keep coming back to is the trial and error,
Yeah.
You gotta just start something, try it, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then go from there.
Yeah, the kind of popular and classic like corporate mantra is like, you can't manage what you can't measure. So if you mm-hmm. can't measure expenditures and why they're important, not just, it's like, okay, you pay this much, but what do you get out of it?
Right.
And you can't be very quick on the ball in conversations with potential funders and saying, because that's one of the questions I got, which you said, like, hey, why are you asking for money for a soundtrack? Like, we thought you'd be asking for something else. I was like, well, look, I don't make music.
Right.
But I am doing these 3 other jobs, and, and when you break down the numbers, like, this, 30 stories, how many hours is that going to be? Like, this is the best investment we can make.
Yeah.
And then you can say this, and I have this amazing person, right? Like, you're ready because you thought this through.
Right.
And so, yeah, just being very tangible about things.
Got it.
And not getting, I think it's easy to get concerned and anxious about, is your idea any good?
Right.
But, the way it's going to come across is like, you know what, it's good. Now is it going to get made?
Right.
Or is it ever going to fulfill this promise that you have?
Got it.
And you can only convince someone of that if you're being very concrete about it. Mm-hmm. If you're having the conversation where it's just you and me at the table, and I'm saying like, well, I really like food, and that's the wrong conversation. Like,
right.
You're already behind.
Yeah.
So it's great if you, once you have your kind of trial and error figured out, and you need certain resources, you show them that you're on this path, and they're coming in after you've already done the hard stuff.
Yeah.
You've already made your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you encounter future mistakes, they'll get that, like, you're someone who knows how to learn and mm-hmm. adapt, and they're not going to come back for a meeting later and then find you really hard to work with.
Yeah.
Which is, a stereotype that you can see with directors in Hollywood. Certain cases probably justified, but if you're just one of us doing stuff on the ground and you can kind of show that you're just a very practical person,
right.
and you're going to be easy to work with, like that is a great reputation to build, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And we've touched on this at different points in this discussion, but were there any other ways other than the ways we mentioned, social media, events, like anything like that, that you were able to gain more exposure for your series?
So it's an independent series,
Mm-hmm.
and that means I have no audience. Like
Of
there's no reason that people should know my name.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of these big picture questions.
Yeah.
Which is like, how's anyone going to find out about this? I spent season 2, an entire season, being on my own
Mm-hmm.
and trying to go through my existing network and social media marketing and promotion. That didn't work, right? The
Right,
numbers are really
right.
bad.
Yep.
And so one thing that did happen was during that season, I had worked with the editor from Edible Manhattan and Edible Brooklyn, which are two very prominent food magazines
Right.
locally here in New York. And there's an Edible magazine in every city and town that has a publisher wanting to do it.
Right.
So those stories, any stories that I did in Manhattan or Brooklyn, we were just experimenting, and we said, look, let's put these stories on your website, and I'll license them to you. You know, they gave me a very fair price, which I'm really thankful for. Like they really valued my work in a fair way, and for this kind of license. And we had this relationship kind of being built where we both understood, like, okay, I'm good at making these video stories. You do have some video staff, but it's not like Eater. It's not like these other kind of more wealthier organizations that have entire video production units so they can afford to just do everything themselves. I wrote Eater with the same offer. I said, hey, I'm making these cool stories. People seem to like them. You want to partner up, or you want to do something? You want to syndicate this? And they had shared one of my stories, and because they knew people would like it, but they never spoke to me again. They never, or at all. They never talked to me because I don't fit into that picture.
Right.
With Edible, I fit into the picture because we're complementing each other. So during the second season, even though I had such a hard time getting any natural audience, getting any real following, which that's a really long-term game that is just so hard and unrewarding, but I had this relationship with this one magazine, these two magazines, that was very healthy and collaborative. And so when I came back for season 3, I said, I really liked that. And the numbers for those are no better or no worse than what I could get on my own. And I know that this person cares. And I know that if I pitch a bigger idea, they're going to at least listen to me.
Yeah.
So I did that. And my idea was, look, I really like what we've been doing with your two magazines. Do you know, like, now we have Edible Bronx, now we have Edible Queens, which had not been in play before. These are relatively new kind of lives for these magazines because they're so small and independent.
Yeah.
But I said, what if we got all 4 of us and all the stories went through all the edibles, and we had this very, kind of united event. And Lauren, who's the editor, the leader of Edible Brooklyn Manhattan, said, that's great, let's talk about it.
Right.
And this is what I care about, this is what I'm concerned about, can we do this, can we make sure this happens? And that's the exact kind of conversation I wanted to have. And so now we're doing this thing where it's like Monday through Friday. Monday, Edible Manhattan puts out one of my stories. Tuesday, Edible Brooklyn. Wednesday, Edible Queens. Thursday, Edible Bronx. Friday, there's no Edible in Staten Island, so I got the local paper, who also had been excited about it. And now we have a real thing. And now I'm reaching thousands of people with every story from minute 1 because they have these built-in audiences.
Right.
And I don't have to solve a problem that I'm never going to solve, which is like how does a no-name brand, like brand building is a totally different challenge from getting your show seen.
Yeah.
And distribution can happen in a lot of ways, but if your real goal is to reach people, that's different from building your own business where people follow you. I don't care if people follow me. I really don't.
Right.
And what I care about is reaching the people who are going to really appreciate the series, because I know they're not going to find it in another way. So this is great. And then from there, you find other opportunities. Okay, if something gets posted to Edible Manhattan, someone who works with them or someone who's a fan of theirs is going to see it, and they're going to want to see more, or they're going to want to talk to you. So the theme, right, of like getting started is you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
What you should know is what you have to work with, and what you should do is make space for yourself to check in. I check in like every week.
Yeah.
And just like how much time is going into what? What's working, what's not working. how am I defining, like, how do I know it's working or not? What did I decide was the right way to look at that? Is it the numbers? Is it the follower numbers? For me, no. Is it the view numbers? For me, that's a bigger part of it, right? And just go from there. And then every time you do a new story, you should just treat it like an entirely new thing, and don't assume that like everything you've done to date will help you. But you shouldn't assume that just because you've done all this work to date, it just makes your next story, it's this much successful. It's just like starting over all over again.
Exactly.
And then when you do have enough views as a baseline because you've done a good job, great, that's great. Okay, it's a bonus. But like, I never wake up thinking and expecting that like anyone's going to watch the story.
Right.
And that puts you in the mindset of having to prioritize. Like, okay, am I going to email this community group? Am I going to email this newspaper? I did a story on a community oven, which is a place, it's an old tradition that is being revived in different places in the world and in the US, where you go to a park and there's some group of people who are in charge of this oven, and you can come in for a baking event and put stuff in it, like pizza or like, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so one thing I did with that story was I just did a quick Google search for, well, there must be other community, and I found other community ovens, and just went on Facebook and started messaging them, and they responded really well and shared it with their groups.
Yeah,
so it's like, okay, now all of a sudden, I did a story in Brooklyn, now it's being shown in Washington, now it's being shown in Colorado, now it's being shown in Canada.
Right.
And I can come back and say, well, okay, how many views did we get? Was that worth it? But it was 5 minutes of work. To me, it was worth it just to know that other people will be interested. But that's the thing. With marketing and kind of like, I do have a way to measure it.
Yep.
That's nice. I don't know if it's going to be what it's going to lead to, but I do know that people in Canada are now watching this, and there are people, the right people are watching it. They're really enthusiastic about this stuff.
Yeah.
And so then you can ask whatever questions you want. Do I care about them being followers? Okay, you can go check up on that and see if they did. Or do you just move on? It's just, at the end of the day, you take these small steps. And I think the thing that people often miss is kind of being honest and going back and saying, okay, I did that, now what was the point? Because otherwise, that's the difference between just throwing a bunch of stuff out and really exhausting yourself, just hoping something good happens.
Right.
And taking steps and always being able to see the picture at the end of the day and saying, yeah, okay, what did I like about all this stuff, and what am I going to start doing, and what am I going to stop doing? At the end of the second season, I just decided, I actually decided it wasn't going to be a series because we had such low numbers and success in terms of getting viewership. I thought if it's a series, you need viewers. Your viewers numbers have to grow up, and ours went down.
Yeah.
So it didn't discourage me from doing the work. It just said, okay, this is not going to succeed if it's just content that I want people to just, hey, please follow me forever. And I realized that this is probably because it's a minute long and it's nonfiction. And where do you watch that stuff? You don't watch it on Netflix. You don't watch it on Amazon. You don't watch it on Hulu. Facebook video just barely existed. It didn't even exist at that time. And now what happened though is when I got back to this season, I started talking to people and I realized like, whoa, I was so burned out on this being a series, but now that I know about web series communities and festivals and all these things that are now finally growing and Facebook video has these options, it's like, maybe I was wrong about that. Maybe it was the right answer at that time, but now it's not. So I got more comfortable again. I had done all this work to create this community event, to create the museum exhibit, and that paid off because it got me a lot of press.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was totally happy seeing like, it is a series. And if I say it's a new season, it'll be better for press.
Yeah.
If I say there are 30 episodes and there's an episode a day, that'll be better for marketing. And if I say, if I am using Facebook video, at least for the run of the season, I can really take advantage of this thing, this kind of TV convention, which I thought was so bad for me before. But now that Facebook is here and the tools are useful enough, I really changed my mind about that. So building that hour or that afternoon where you can get out of your head and grab someone you trust or someone on your team and just talk through like, what do you have, and like what's the best thing to do. It all will just like build up. So you're making all these small decisions, then you can finally say, oh shit, like this is what I'm doing.
Right.
So I had that moment when I started the series and I was just filming stuff, and then I said, oh, this is what I'm doing. And then I got to the end of the season and I said, okay, I'm not being, plugged into this website that was giving me all the views, Serious Eats. So this is what I'm doing. And you just have to redefine it every day. Every time you get to a certain point where you're like, great, I just finished a really good amount of work. Like, be grateful for that. Definitely. And then say like, okay, what am I doing again? Like, I need to be able to explain it to myself and to others.
Right. Cool. So, just in summary, what advice, tips, what would you say, what are some key points that you would tell to anyone who's just trying to get their idea off the ground and they don't have a lot, they're on their own, they may not have a lot of resources?
I would say pick an amount of time that you're going to have something done. Mm-hmm. And define, let's say something done, I mean a story that somebody can watch, or a piece of a story that somebody can watch.
Right.
It doesn't have to be finished.
Yeah.
Pick an amount of time, 2 weeks, 1 weekend, even 1 day.
Yep.
Just do it and then just see what happens. I really think that's the best thing, because then and anytime you hit a wall where it's like, oh, I wanted to do this but I don't have it, then sorry, your story's going to have to change a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the most important thing is to meet that deadline.
Right.
And then you'll be done, and then you'll say, okay, well, yeah, this is what I have, this is what I could do, and then you can really make those calculations and say, okay, if I had 2 days, I could have done this. If I had the same amount of time but a better lens, I could have done this. If I had the same amount of time but I had a week to really prepare my cast, or do some more pre-interview with the subject, for a documentary. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you know. So that's the number one thing. It's really just getting almost away from your goal and saying, I have this many days or this many hours, and I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
That's it.
Cool.
And then just, do that again, do it again, and keep going from there. And you will have something.
Right.
And you will figure out what you're doing. And sometimes you'll realize you shouldn't do it. That's great. Then you can move on to another idea that you're going to feel great about.
Yeah.
And everything counts. Every single time you finish something, no matter how incomplete it feels to you, you move forward and you learn something. And that's going to stick with you. You're never going to lose anything that you learned along the way.
Yeah.
But if you are caught up in trying to do something and you just have too many problems that you can't solve, then you're not learning as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you'll just be unhappy. So, to be totally fair, I have documentary projects that are going on at the same time where I'm totally stuck, and I can't do anything about that. They're feature projects, and that's a whole different ballgame. And so by keeping this web series and keeping this place where I'm free to do what I want and make mistakes and learn and be done kind of one piece at a time, it just makes it possible for me to keep going.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the best thing about web series, is that, it's easy to say, this is going to be a success and it's going to be great when I get picked up on TV. Like, I forget about that. Like, it's going to be a success when you have all these other ideas that you just can't make happen.
Yeah.
For reasons that are fair or unfair. And it's going to be great when you say, well, at least I have this thing that is mine, and it's only what I can do. And if someone were to look at the work, they would really understand who I am and what I like to do.
Right.
And what I can do. And the more that you create that space and protect that space, the more you'll be able to figure out what it is that you're going to be, and hopefully create some more opportunities so that your bigger projects someday get the time they deserve.
Awesome. Well, that's about all I have, James.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk about this.
I'm happy and hope it's helpful.
Definitely.
Because everyone could use someone to talk to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you all, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure it helped some of you. So keep an eye out for season 3 of 1 Minute Meal.
Yeah.
And definitely be sure to follow James's work. And until
everything is season 3 is running right now. I'm not sure what right now is for the release of this interview, but we started on July 24th and until September 1st. Every weekday there's a new story. So Facebook, Instagram at 1 Minute Meal. you will see everything live and coming out, and it'll be a really great picture of New York that I hope you appreciate.
And I'll put links to all of that in the description below. But until next time, guys, you're watching Demo Reel.